Someone asked how Asperger's affects my life. Before I start, I just want to say that I guess I'm very high functioning and successful or whatever, so don't assume that I'm like a typical example. I mean, I might be a typical example of a girl because I know girls tend to have a lot more problems with being anxious and like not as many problems with like immediately looking like they have Asperger's and like sort of the discrimination that comes from looking like you have Asperger's. So I could be a typical girl, but I don't know any other girls who have it, so I have no idea. Basically, anyway, this is like a very individual story. Really, like the major way it affects my life is like a way that other people really don't know about, which is just that sometimes when things happen, I feel a really strong urge to explain them, but I know I shouldn't monologue, so I have a lot of notebooks and I'm supposed to use them for writing fiction, which is what I supposedly try to do as my like major activity, but I spend so much time in my notebooks just writing explanations of different things I'm thinking about. And also when I get really excited when I'm at home and thinking about things, I just get up and I start running around the house and like flapping my arms up and down and jumping up and down. And I do it without even thinking about it. And these two things are really the things that bother me the most because I feel like I don't have control over my own body and my own thoughts. And when I've been jumping around or when I've been like writing about all these things that like I really wanted to produce writing that was like fictional or like an essay or something, and I just produce all these explanations, I feel like so worn out, and I feel like I've worn out my energy doing things that weren't really important. So that's really the worst part. Like, I feel like when people talk about Asperger's, they always think the worst part is like how you like don't fit into society or something. But I feel like that's kind of ableist and thinks that like all disabled people are just freaking out about whether they fit in all the time. Because I feel like for me, some of the worst parts about having it are just like things in my own head that I don't really talk to other people about. So there's that. Otherwise, I guess I would say that I thought of like a clever way to say this. I don't. Oh, I forgot it. Wait. My life isn't affected by Asperger's, but it's all about Asperger's. And what I mean by that is that, like, when you think of, like, a regular person's life, if I described my life to you in terms of, like, going to college, like, being confident that I'll be able to have a job after college and having friends, it sounds like a regular person's life. But, I don't have a lot of options. Like, I don't have the range of options that a regular person has. And I guess a good analogy for this is like if a person uses a wheelchair all the time, they can only go into buildings that either have a ramp, they can only go into buildings that are wheelchair accessible. And so they might end up going into all the buildings as another person, and if they just described everything they did in a day, it would sound just the same as, it wouldn't sound out of the ordinary, but keep in mind that it's actually very limited because they can't go upstairs. So for me, it's kind of like I pretty much have assumed for like a few years that I'm going to be working with people who have like mental disabilities and autism, and the reason for that is that a lot of regular people are very hard for me. Like, I just can't really read people, so I get very nervous, and I don't pick up on things fast, so people get mad at me. Like, the more mad they get, the slower I pick up on things because I'm more upset. It's like a big vicious cycle. And there are lots of regular people that are very, like, I guess, straightforward and, like, forgiving and kind, and those are the kind of people that I tend to be friends with. But, there are a lot of people like that, but I'm not going to go into, like, a group of, like, random regular people and try to work with them because I know that a lot of the people are going to be really hard for me, and I can't do that every day for my life. So I would rather work with developmentally disabled people because I know that generally, most of the time, I can assume that I'm going to get along well with them because they tend to be more straightforward and like exuberant and stuff, and they tend to care more about like things like me being consistent and like dedicated than whether I pick up on things fast, because you know a lot of them don't pick up on things quickly either. So even though I'm going to try to pursue a kind of job that like many people try to pursue, it's kind of my only option. So there's that, I guess. What else? I'm sorry. Like, I have trouble with my friends and all. Like, I guess one big problem that I have is just I can be like a really obsessive friend, and I can get really like close to someone. I want to see them like a certain amount of time every day, and if I don't see them, I think that they don't like me because I can't tell. So that's something I struggle with a lot, and you know, try to deal with and figure out like smart ways and sort of like systems to remind myself like, no, like, don't go visit them this time, you just visited them, like, let's not like overload them. So I have to work on that kind of thing. Like a few months ago I had a big problem with a friend because I did something that was pretty awful and like upsetting to him, and I guess I thought it was okay because it wouldn't have upset me if someone did it to me, and I just didn't put myself in his shoes enough and think about how he would react. So, and I guess I also have trouble with certain friends that are very like socially successful, because I always feel kind of like, even when they're not trying to, I just feel like they're pulling rank on me, and I can see how everything is so much easier for them that I tend to be kind of like a little spiteful. So those are my main like friendship problems, and like obviously you can see that they come from having Asperger's, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that they only happen to people with Asperger's, and I wouldn't say that I have more fights with my friends than the average person, because you know regular people have fights with their friends for like different reasons, you know, so I feel pretty equal. Yeah, when I meet people for the first time, I have trouble because I tend to express myself using a lot of different words, like unusual words. Or sometimes, like when I'm in class, I speak very simply, and I don't use like the same kind of like, just kind of like fancy little touches that I feel like people use in an academic setting to like sort of keep the the academic tone. So like frequently in class, I think people will just be like completely nonplussed or think that I'm making a joke because I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. I'll just be like, oh, like in this Yeats poem, it seems like this guy's being kind of a jerk to his girlfriend and she doesn't like it, you know? Like, I'll say that, and then that'll have this big, like, sort of confused or, like, offended reaction from my classmates because it sounds like I'm trying to, like, make a joke about Yeats and, like, I don't take my class seriously, when in fact it's just that I don't put up the, like, certain correct, like, word choice where I'm supposed to be like, well, in this poem, I mean, I don't even know what the intellectual way to say that would be. So, that's a problem. Another problem is just, like, I'm pretty young for my age, and, like, I just learned how to take subways this summer. I'm 20, and I just learned I just learned where things are in New York City, even though I've lived, like, a mile, like, an hour away from there for my whole life and gone in there a lot. I just always relied on somebody else. So, you know, a lot of things are, I'm just learning now to travel by myself. There are a lot of things that I just am kind of learning to do for myself at a later age than other people. So, but the thing is, like, there are people who don't have Asperger's who have that same experience just because, like, they were very sheltered, and, like, I was very sheltered, so there's that reason for it, too. Like, I guess what I want to say is, except for the thing that only I know about with the, like, obsessiveness and the sort of, like, full body stims that are very, like, distracting, most of the Asperger's related issues that I have in my life now are issues that anyone could technically have. And pretty much everything about my life doesn't like scream disabled, and just is just like, well, a regular kind of shy person, you know, who's a little weird but isn't disabled. You know, that kind of person could have the same life as me. So I guess what I mean to say is, like, when you look at my life, you can see that it's related to having Asperger's, but it's not, I have trouble, like, saying, oh, I'm Asperger's, and, like, this thing about my life proves it.